Hi, in this video, we're going to learn about adding welcome files with servlets. So currently, in order to access our MVC application, we have to explicitly call the servlet URL. So we give localhost web student tracker / student controller servlet. And that's fine for development and testing, but not really good for real world development or real world deployment. So what I'd like to do is make things just a little bit simpler by simply just giving the URL to the web app without having to explicitly call the servlet. So I like to take this URL and be able to share it with somebody without getting into all the gory details of student controller servlet. So what you can do is make use of a feature with the Java servlets or web apps where there's a deployment descriptor file called web.xml, and it has various configs for application deployment. So one of the options available is welcome files. So this will basically tell the server, hey, if no one accesses a servlet or file directly, then go look for these welcome files and serve those up instead. So basically it's going to look for a welcome file and it'll look for that welcome file in your web.xml file. So you have this welcome file list and you'll have a list of files. Now it's actually going to search these files top down. So it'll come through, it'll say, hey, is there an index.html? If so, it'll serve it up. You can add as many welcome files here as you'd like. You can also add references to servlets here. And this is what it'll look for as far as a welcome file if the URL doesn't have an explicit file reference. So this is kind of cool. So that's kind of the theory. Let's swing into Eclipse and let's try this out. So first off, before we get into coding, I just want to show you what'll happen here if we don't have a file reference. So note the URL. I have the big long URL with student controller servlet. I'm going to simply take that off and just try and access my app directly. And I'll just hit the enter button. And ooh, yucky, we have this 404 error. So basically it wasn't able to find a resource because right now this web app doesn't have any welcome files defined or configured. So we need to fix that. So in order to fix it, we first need to add a web.xml file to our project and configure it properly. So I'll move back into our starter files. I'll move into this directory here, webinf. And I'll select this file, web.xml. I'll do a right click and I'll copy this file. Then I'll move back over to Eclipse and then I'll actually paste this file into my webinf directory. So I'll paste it into web content / webinf. So that's the web.xml file. And once I paste this new file here, I need to restart Tomcat just so it'll pick up these new configurations for this project. So you can just simply choose your Tomcat server, right click, choose restart. All right, so web content, webinf, web.xml, double click it. So here's the file that we had from the slide. So basically it's just a web deployment descriptor and it has those welcome files. What I want to do here is create a new welcome file called index.html. So I want to solve the problem that we were having a little earlier. So creating a new file, index.html. Enter it here. And once I'm happy with that file name, I can go ahead and click on the finish button. Okay, great. So blank file. So let's just create a very simple HTML file with the body. I'll set up like just some very basic text. Hello, brave new world, brave new world. And I'll set up some H1 tags around it. All right. So just a very basic hello world page. All right, I'll save this file. Now, if I go back to my browser, I should be able to test this out. So in my browser, instead of the 404 error, if I click on reload for this URL, then boom, good job. So now I'm getting that HTML file that I just added. And that's because this index.html, it's listed as a welcome file in my web.xml file. So the system, it went through looking for some files. It looked for index.jsp, didn't find it. Then it looked for index.html, found one, and that's the file that it served up. So this was working out really good. So we have the basics going here for our welcome files. So good job so far. But I really want more. I don't want just the hello world. I want my servlet. Okay. I want my student controller servlet. So what I'll do is I'll actually add the servlet as a welcome file. So I'll simply grab the URL mapping for this servlet. I'll copy it. And then I'll use that in that web.xml for setting up a reference to a welcome file. So I'll move here into this web.xml and I'll add a new entry here for a welcome file. And so instead of giving an actual file name like a JSP or an HTML file, I'll give the URL mapping of my servlet, student controller servlet. And it's listed first. So it should pick that one up before it makes it to the HTML page. So just be careful in the order. Remember, it'll search for files top down. Again, go through and just refresh or restart this Tomcat server because we made some config changes to our web.xml file. All right, so now that Tomcat is restarted, then I can go back into my browser and test some things out. So here I click on refresh and booyah. Now, note the URL is just Web Student Tracker, but behind the scenes, it's automatically forwarding or calling our student controller servlet. So this looks great. So there's no servlet reference in the URL, but it's basically being served up, processing. All of our big MVC stuff is working in the background, thanks to our database work. So this is great. So I just wanted to show you this little trick here for making use of welcome files here with the web.xml. All right, good job.